afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for joining today's webinar. Today we're going to be presenting on location intelligence, aggregating and visualizing P&C risk. On today's webinar, we have myself, Kristen Brown. I'm the Marketing Events Manager with Ironside, in addition to Crystal Myers, my colleague who is an Engagement Manager, Business Intelligence. And from Pitney Bowes, we have Heidi Geronimo, the Principal Product Manager for Location Intelligence with Pitney Bowes. Just a quick overview before we get started. I wanted to give a brief introduction of who Ironside is and why companies choose to work with us. Ironside has provided strategic consulting and business analytics advisory for companies across North America. To support our business model, we've built out practice areas to deliver strategy, implementation, training, and even platform hosting. We are truly a full-service firm. We have been in business since 1999, and to date we have over 500 happy clients, and we're very happy about that. We strive to provide thought leadership that can be applied across your organization. And today our focus is on a risk aggregation solution for property and casualty insurance firms, which thank you to our partner Pitney Bowes for helping us with this call today. So we've partnered together to deliver this risk aggregation solution that's specific to P&C Insurers, and we are really excited to share it with you today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Crystal.
Thank you, Kristen. So as mentioned, we are going to demonstrate and discuss a specific risk solution today, something that will allow you to easily visualize risk associated with property and casualty insurance, specifically the potential for catastrophic events to take place and their impact to your portfolio. Before we get to that, though, I do want to do a brief overview of what location intelligence is and some of the benefits it can bring to your organization. When we talk about location intelligence, what we mean is the use of analytics, specifically 3 different types of analytics, in a location-oriented context. Those 3 types of analytics are descriptive analytics or business intelligence, which is presenting data in a location-driven manner using spatial relationships that already exist. Predictive analytics, which is creating predictive models using spatial techniques. So we're creating new relationships between the data or identifying relationships that we haven't already seen in order to better forecast or better predict how location impacts certain decisions and strategies. And then prescriptive analytics, which is where our business decisions are actually being driven by those spatial relationships. For example, incorporating real-time rerouting of a delivery or a service route based on specific traffic or weather events that we identified. All right. Along with those 3 types of analytics, we're also looking at 3 specific types of data in location intelligence. And those are spatial reference data, which make up the actual maps and the different plans and layers that we're going to look at. Enterprise data, which is the data that your organization owns and is already gaining insight from today. And then external data and services, which is the supplemental data that you can incorporate with that enterprise data and add additional context to gain new insights from that may be given a different slant or provide different things that you may not have seen in just looking at the enterprise data on its own. A common type of that external data is demographic data. And there are 2 different types of demographic data, demographic and geodemographic. So I want to quickly discuss the difference between the 2. Demographic data, we're talking about just that raw data that's rolled up, typically about one specific set of individuals who live in a certain area. We're aggregating basically one attribute for a population. For example, count of 18 to 25-year-olds who live in a specific neighborhood. What that's helpful for are things like determining where should we put a new retail site that targets that specific age group. Geodemographic data, on the other hand, is a little bit more complicated. We're looking at similar types of information, but instead of just aggregating one attribute of that population, we're combining many attributes to assign a profile to different individuals based on their location. And this helps us to identify instances where we may have the same demographic, but very different geodemographics within the same location or similar location. One quick example of a geodemographic data set, and this is one of several hundred different data sets, not just demographic or geodemographic, but this is offered by Pitney Bowes. So they have industry-specific data sets, they have point of interest-based data sets, drive time and routing data sets. This is an example of the Cameo global geodemographic data that can be used across the world to assign a profile to different census tracts within neighborhoods. This next slide is really just designed to highlight that there is no sector or industry that's immune to the benefits of location intelligence. And what we're going to focus on now are a couple of examples specific to the insurance industry. The first one is just a screenshot of a historical weather event-driven analysis. The event that you see here is actually Hurricane Sandy. So what we're looking at is an impact analysis of how the different wind swaths of that event impacted the policyholders for this company, what the values and premiums were for people within the different areas of the hurricane's path. Within that same view, if you switch to the second tab, you also have the ability to filter on different time frames, different types of warnings or risks, different types of insurances, or location, state, county, whatever it may be. All right, so again, this was based on historical weather data, which was pulled from NOAA and stored in the organization's data store. So that was refreshed on a regular basis. The demo we're going to look at now is actually going to incorporate live real-time weather data. So let me just pull this up and get it started. So this is a demo that was built using Spectrum Spatial for BI by Pitney Bowes. The demo itself was built in Cognos, but this technology and the solution neither are specific to Cognos. These can be integrated with a number of existing BI solutions. There are 10 that are currently supported. The functionality that you're going to see today is not limited to Cognos. Some of the other vendors that the Spectrum Spatial technology is supported by are Tableau, QlikView, Microsoft, SAP. Like there are 10 in total. And what you'll see here coming up on the screen is a dashboard that incorporates both native BI content on the right with a map view of our policyholder information on the left. So this is an aggregated view of policyholder count by state that we're looking at first. And over here we have some header metrics that give us a quick count of different things: policy count, risk factor, total insurable value. So when these two views of the information are incorporated with one another, we have a comprehensive risk assessment dashboard. What's nice about this is we can immediately identify the different geographic areas where we have highly concentrated populations of policyholders. And if there were a catastrophic event to occur in those areas, we would be at high risk. This is also fully interactive. So the only thing you have to do to allow users to interact with the location-based information is give them access to the BI report. And you'll see that in doing so, I have the ability to change metrics by turning on and off map layers. So instead of policyholder count, I'm going to look at total risk factor. And we'll notice a couple of things here. In this view, I see that some of the areas that had the highest concentration of policyholders, for example, Michigan, doesn't necessarily have the highest total risk factor. Let me just turn my legend on here so we have some context. You'll see that the blue states are the highest by risk factor, whereas in my policyholder count view, the red states were the highest concentration. So Michigan is an example where even though we have a very high concentration of policyholders, our risk is still not in that highest threshold. And then opposite to that, we have Massachusetts, where, again, going back to the policyholder count, when we first look at this, we may not have immediately identified that one as of highest risk. But when we switch to the total risk factor view, we see that it actually does fall into that highest category. Another view that we can take is to actually layer another metric on top of this. So let's take total policy value in conjunction with the risk factor. So now we're looking at what policies or areas are going to have the policies that are both of the highest risk and highest value. So basically, where is our biggest risk for exposure? And you'll see states like California, Texas, New York, Florida. These are the areas where we really want to keep an eye on and be proactive. Let's just take a look and see if there's anything going on in Texas that we need to be concerned about. So let's zoom in here. And if we want to get just a little bit more context about that state or that location, we can change our navigation mode here. I'm just going to use what's called the pop-up mode. And by doing that, you can click on any geographic area name and get more information about that area based on which layers are turned on here. The other thing you'll see here is what's called a drill-through link. I'll come back to this in a few moments. That will allow us to actually drill down to the level of detail for that specific area. So when we click on that, it will take us down to the county level within the state of Texas. But first, I want to look and see if there are any weather events in Texas that I need to be concerned with. So if I go to my background layers section, these data overlays are WMS services that are publicly available. There are hundreds, if not thousands of them that can be added and incorporated. And these are real-time information. The one that I'm adding now comes from NOAA, and this is going to be a flood risk, flood hazard warning. So we're going to look at where are potential floods or existing floods happening. You'll see that we do see some areas here. It's kind of hard to see them. So let me just turn this blue layer off so we can see it a little bit better. All right, so now we can focus on those areas here. And now that we know where those areas are, let me just zoom in a little here. And you'll see when I zoomed, even without drilling through, I had the county level map embedded under my state level map. And I now have a by county view of this information. Going back out, if I want to look at multiple metrics for that county, I can do what I did before, which is click on this pop-up and go to my link here, which will show me every county in Texas that has information. This is all updating real time and querying all of our different data sources. You can see that it does come back fairly quickly. And so now we have our county level information we turn that background layer back on to see the flood risk again, if you remember it was down here in this area, we can zoom in and focus on what particular counties are being affected by that event. And again, just to make it a little bit clearer to see, because of the colors we're using here, the green kind of blends in. So we'll turn on just our total policy value. And in looking at total policy value, the highest buckets are going to be those right slanted ones. And we do see that down here, flood warning in a county that has that highest policy value categorization. So let's zoom in and focus on that for just a moment. All right, we'll see that that flood warning actually crosses 2 counties. So we have policyholders in 2 counties being affected. Obviously, Liberty County, we have a higher concentration or a higher total policy value. So we may be a little bit more concerned there, but let's just take a look at how this flood warning specifically impacts our policyholders. We can use the selection tool within Spectrum Spatial to actually make a selection on our map that aligns to this flood warning area. And as soon as we do that, we get a quick little summary that shows us the total counts within each of those counties. So we can see that Liberty County has a total policy value of about almost $7 million. And within Chambers County, it's $2 million. If we wanted to, we could export this to Excel. You know, maybe we had more than 2 counties on here, that maybe there were 15 or 20, and we wanted to quickly export that information to save it off for future use. We can come up here and do an export. This one. And that information will open in Excel. You can also do a quick screenshot of this information and embed it into an email or a presentation. The other nice thing you can do with these selections is interact with the header metrics over on the right. And you will see once we drill down to the county level, all of these metrics also reflected for the counties now instead of the state. So within Texas, we have 36,624 policies. Let's go ahead and apply that selection. Let me make sure it's still selected here, to our header metrics and see how many policies we have just in those 2 counties. All right, so in updating that, you'll see that the header metrics on the right all updated, and our map is also updating to focus just on those 2 counties that have the flood warning. We have 160 policies within those 2 counties that could potentially be impacted by this flooding. What we choose to do with that now is actually the actionable part of this information, and we can very easily get access to all of those policyholders. So maybe we want to reach out to those 160 people and do some proactive campaigning to potentially reduce our risk. You know, here are some steps you want to take if you're in a flood area to potentially reduce the risk of damage to your home or to your property. So let's go ahead and export a list of those policyholders. This is one of the nice things about this technology is that exporting this list, regardless of the volume, you know, we're only looking at 160 here, but we could be looking at 50,000. And this export would not cause an impact to our VI environment because of the way that the architecture is behind the scenes. The 2 software platforms are not tied together tightly. They're loosely integrated with bidirectional communication. So they are talking to one another, but they're not on the same system. So if one of them has an issue, the other one is not impacted. You know, a heavy load on one system doesn't cause a performance problem on the other one. Whereas some similar tools actually have the 2 running, you know, very tightly integrated and sometimes even on the same server. So if you experience a performance issue with one tool, the other one is also impacted. So we're going to get this list of policyholders, and we are going to ship that list that's going to open in Excel over to our customer service team. They're going to start making some calls based on a script that's created to help people minimize their risk of flood damage. And that is how we get actionable intelligence out of this solution. And there's our Excel file. Quickly open that to show you what it looks like. All right, so you can see we have all of our individual policyholders and all of the attributes about those policies that we would need to answer any questions they have and make that experience personalized to them. So with that, I will turn it back over to Kristen to close us up.
Thanks, Crystal. Yep, so we had a couple of questions that came in ahead of time and a couple that have come in now. So one of the questions was, how do we get access to the industry-specific data sets?
So I can take that one. So what I would recommend, so with Pitney Bowes, we have 150 unique data sets, some of which are industry specific. So I would say get in touch with your account rep to get a detailed view or listing of the industry specific data sets that you're looking for. And they should be able to help you out with that.
Thank you. Other than geocode and internal company data, what external data sources were overlaid in this visualization?
So I'll take a first stab at that and then let Heidi add on to that. So in this specific solution, the only external data we're incorporating and overlaying are the real-time weather feeds, which are publicly available via WMS applications. Depending on what you're trying to accomplish with a specific analytics solution, though, again, Heidi, do you want to mention some of the other external data that could be incorporated?
Yeah, sure. So again, I mean, as I just mentioned, I mean, we do have about 350 unique data sets, over 240 different geographies. So, I mean, anything ranging from, you know, world streets that include routing and drive time to points of interest, world points of interest, to, you know, telco risk and hazard vertical data, to demographics, geodemographics, consumer spend, yeah, I mean, postcode and admin boundaries for sure. So it really does range depending on what your requirements are. Absolutely. So again, we do have a data catalog. The best bet would be to get in touch with your account rep and see if you can talk to them about your requirements.
Thanks, Heidi. Another question, what weather layers do you bring in and how often are they updated?
Yeah, so the specific weather layer that we brought in for this solution was the inland coast flood warnings and watches. There are hundreds of WMS services that you can use as background overlays that will give you the same look and feel as what you just saw. There are things like snowfall measurements, heat and cold advisories. When it comes to weather, there are you know, several hundred different overlays that can be incorporated. There are also different demographic overlays that you can incorporate, household income, housing count, populations, as well as postal data.
Thanks, Crystal. How efficiently can the visualization data be distributed to others in the organization, such as CAT response teams, and in what format?
Okay, so because the solutions and the spatial data representation is incorporated into your BI solution, distributing the information in an interactive format is as simple as providing those people and those users with access to the BI environment. So you would distribute this just like you would with any other BI report or dashboard. They can consume it via the BI environment for full interactivity. You can also run this and generate, PDF content just to send screenshots of certain views of the dashboard as well.
Thanks. So I don't have any more questions that have come in. I know we're a little early here. So if you have any questions that come up in the meantime, feel free to reach out. Also, just thank you all for your time, and we'd love the opportunity to see if you guys are set up for success, and we'd love to help you with a free consultation to establish an actionable plan to help you with your success. Thank you guys again. We'll reach out. We'll send over a replay of this webinar, and if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out. My email is on the bottom here. And with that, I'll leave you the rest of half an hour to your day, and hope you all have a great rest of your week.